Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 496, HHH, Herbert's 100 Harem. The conversation ends when the enormous, formally robed, but undoubtedly undaunted Ibudwuv steps in and bows. He walks up and takes a formal position behind Herbert with a traditional and fully sized Orojo club. The mated brother club to the Ojoro, the green-skinned Ibu has night black hair and is worn in one of the accepted formal styles where the bangs hang low opposite of his horn. It is cresting upwards above his right eye, and as such the left half of his face is concealed. The larger male tusk gleams in the room, and Lady Val cannot help but stare for a moment, forgetting decorum for just a moment. The Orojo club is laid across the Ibudwuv's lap as he takes a seat with his knees together to signify that he is listening and subordinate. There is a quirk to the lips of Herbert, who fully understands the entirety of the statement he has just made. "I see," Lady Val states. "Considering what I'm informed is what you did with that Floric male earlier, I believe it." Herbert merely smiles. "From what family does your subordinate hail?" "He is of a Ch.496-500, Herbert answers. "I see," she says and reevaluates him. Silence stretches between them. Then an ornate prosthetic body walks into the room as Lady Val shifts her position further back and with her knees together. The blue-painted prosthetic sits with her crown of horns and regards them both. "Mother has stated that I am to speak with you. Until such time as she speaks again, then mine is the voice of Lahbran," the prosthetic states. "Of course, Lady Gentia," Herbert says, and she does not flinch. But there is a pause in her movements as she realizes just how much he knows. "Your prosthetic is truly exquisite. No doubt of even higher quality than the one your husband's bastard gifted to me. And the quality of this prosthetic is nigh flawless as is." "Doubtlessly," Lady Gentia notes. "How deeply have you infiltrated our empire?" "I have not," Herbert states. "We do not appreciate deception." "No deception, reason. Lady Val, despite her being born of a servant, is still valued highly. The branch of the family would be well regarded if nothing else. And who would be more trusted than the first wife chosen to protect and continue the blood of Lady Leaberon's only son?" Herbert asks. "Clever," Lady Gentia admits, and Herbert merely nods his head. "But cleverness alone is not enough. We are seeking out truth of prowess, of honest force, which we cannot gain in such a place." "Are there none upon Centris who can be used to test?" Herbert asks. "Your personal ability? No, but one of the sons of a Ch.496-500. It would show us in exactly what manner the Undaunted bring strength to their soldiers." "But you already know this." "I do. It is why he is here," Herbert states, and Lady Gentia nods. "You are very well informed. Perhaps the legends of your mentor are truth." "I will pass your compliments to him," Herbert assures her. "Very well then. We shall settle this in the proper manner. Alata is prepared for battle and well trained in formal duels. She shall test your work on the Ashatar Scion." "Very well then. Come Ratras, there is battle to be done," Herbert says as he picks up his Ojoro club, and Ratras Ashatar picks up his Orojo club. The weapon of the leader and the weapon of the LED. "Val, fetch Alata. We shall test the training of the Undaunted, their full measure." Lady Val rises up and hurries from the room. After she is gone, Lady Gentia rises up slowly and gracefully, matched by Herbert, and they both exit the room, in pace with each other, neither taking dominance and neither yielding or deferring. I find it curious that so young a member, from so young a species no less, has mastered our decorum and protocol to such a level. Even if you had for some reason been studying our methods since the moment you exited cruel space, you should by all measurements and expectations not have 1 in 100 parts the grace you display. It ties into how Ratras of the Ashatar shall display his newly earned skills. I possess near singular training to close the gaps that the methodology leaves behind. But we are working to incorporate such training into the methodology as well, Herbert states. "I see. You seek self-excellence. Everything that could be asked of the Undaunted was asked of us before we even left our homeworld. We kept finding more and more to give, so we seek the limit, if there is one to be found," Herbert tells her, and she nods. "It is why I sought the Undaunted. Ratras states, and Lady Jinsha looks back in seeming shock before turning back and nodding. Her eyes flicker back and forth, and numerous expressions ram up against the mask she has schooled her face into and threaten to break out as she decodes everything that simple statement said through the ebook context. Then their feet find purchase upon the reinforced flooring of the dueling arena. The concentric circles and the crescent of the bringer of wisdom, woe, and tides in the center. It is under her light that all duels take place, and in the places beyond where her light touches, it is upon her symbol. So that they may learn, so that grief will spare them, and their inner animal nature be quenched and quelled by the water. It takes mere moments for Alada to join them, with Lady Val leading her in. The warrior takes a position facing the upper point of the crescent, and Ratras takes his own facing the lower point. Herbert and Lady Jinsha stand next to each other, their feet not touching the symbol as both of them hold out the matching Ojoro clubs. As per tradition, the smaller clubs are held pointed upwards with the tassels hanging low. The symbol of La Averon, the six-horned crescent, and the undaunted crest dangling. Alata, blue-skinned and proud, is now kneeling with a controlled look of curiosity on her face as she tries to make sense of the Ibaduv opposite of her. Matching her pose is Ratras, who looks outright unimpressed. Granted, that's the natural cast to his face, which had gotten him disciplined more than once as a child, but was simply the way his expression hung. This is a test of strength. We need to see exactly how well trained the undaunted truly are. Lady Jinsha states, "You are not to kill your opponent. This duel stays friendly." Herbert warns Ratras, who nods. There is a momentary pause as the room processes the implications of that order. Then Lady Jinsha and Herbert flip their grip on their clubs to hold the tassels with their symbols upwards and wave in the opposite direction to direct their fighter. Ratras and Alada meet at the points of the crescent, their Orojo clubs slamming into each other with a crack loud enough to be a gunshot. Herbert and Lady Jinsha simply walk away as they continue to exchange blows, parrying immensely powerful blow after immensely powerful blow as both of them go through the motions of a formal duel of strength at first, parrying and striking at one another as they test the reinforcement of their weapons and raw strength. The first to lose grip on their weapon, have their weapon broken, or fumble a parry due to weakness, of course loses. The blows start transferring enough energy to make the floor start to shake. And both combatants are only getting started as the smashing of the clubs grow louder and louder and louder. Then both adjust their grips, and the energy is transferred down, and the floor jumps. In other parts of the building, alarms start going off as earthquake alarms are being tripped. "Cease," Lady Jinsha commands as the swinging of the Orojo grows so fast and powerful that it starts kicking up a wind despite the shape of the clubs. The test of strength is concluded. The undaunted Todibu is of worthy might, but what of his skill? At the traditional question for those who pass the first test, both Ratras and Alata bring out their Orojo in single-handed grips and hold them at full extension, then step backwards to gain distance until the spikes barely touch. They draw their clubs in and take two-handed grips. "Begin," Lady Jinsha orders, and Ratras rushes Alata, who looks like she's holding back a scoff as she moves into an easy defense. He twists his club in midair and she's forced to correct herself at the last moment. She still only just catches his club with the pommel of her own Orojo and keeps him from smashing his weapon into her side. He ducks under the retaliatory swing and brings back his club, not to swing but to stab at her stomach. She weaves away, but there is a slight tearing sound as the spikes of his club catch at her robe, ever so slightly. "Cease," Lady Jinsha orders, and she observes a slight damage to Alada's robe before nodding. The tests of strength and skill are concluded. As we are not beasts, we do not require blood to be shed to prove worth. Orojo down. The heads of both clubs land upon the floor, and the palms of the combatants rest on the pommels. 3 months. He has been undaunted for 1/4 of 1 year, and he can now challenge a blooded La'abaran warrior. "He can," Herbert states. "How do the undaunted see him?" "Above average melee combatant, heavily reliant upon species-based advantages, needs more polish, needs more training, needs more experience, but has shown a hunger for all three, which is more than enough to work with," Herbert explains. Lady Jinsha considers. 3 months ago, he was the pampered son of his family, told in no uncertain terms that the only excuse to depart his duties would be to take up a greater one. He then signed up for your order and was accepted. There is a look of contempt that Ratras struggles to keep off his face. His situation would be better described as smothered than spoiled, but being smothered can spoil one in certain ways, Herbert states. I see, Lady Jinxia remarks before turning to Lady Val. Continue your diplomacy with him. I must speak to the others. Lady Val bows to her, and Lady Jinxia's prosthetic is returned to whatever cradle it comes from in a recall teleport. Walk with me, First Blade of the Undaunted. Lady Val invites him, and he falls in line behind her as Alata and Ratras both start following them. The hall she guides them into has the prosthetics of the officials in a deactivated state, each sitting, looking demure and well-composed, as if merely resting their eyes for the moment. All of similar quality to the one Herbert is currently using. The first question that I expect is, why am I here if the wholeness of the royal family can simply arrive at will through use of prosthesis? I already know the truth of such, Herbert says as he spots Lady Jinxia's now deactivated prosthetic and observes it getting cleaned off by a servant. Oh? You are not Ibu, therefore the morals and expectations surrounded you are slackened. The Ibu wage war with their own nature, a war that you are not a combatant within, or at least it is a battle that needs less fervent combat. Do you truly think so? You recovered near instantly. The war within is nowhere near so severe as it is within the Ibu, Herbert says. Not that all races do not have their own battles to fight. We are all possessed by differing demons, and it is in battle with these cunning and cruel foes that we find our worth. The demon of the Ibu is indulgence. The demon of humanity is sloth. We grow comfortable. We grow static. We find ourselves liking situations because they are sure and need no more thinking to find new answers. Even if what we are in is degrading, abusive, or simply not adequate, we grow comfortable and we grow slothful. The temptation is different, but the temptation is there in all peoples. It is there. It is what makes us people. The demon that whispers within and the fact that we choose to wage war with it. You do understand. But how? It is so difficult for others to even begin to comprehend, Lady Val asks. My teacher. He all but tore open my mind and taught me to learn. It is the greatest thing any teacher can impart, the ability to learn. Perhaps the stories of your teacher are more understatement than exaggeration. They are most certainly understatements. He made a game of conquering a world, made sport of it by choosing one cut off and isolated from aid, and decided to uncover, expose, and make use of a conspiracy that earned me billions of brothers, including the Saint Red Blade of the Primal Faith. We will have to study the records again, closely. I have no doubt you shall. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 497, Herald of Red Blades. The serpent tail of Uma sways back and forth, both mesmerizing and mesmerized by miracle, as the tiny figure matches the movements with the strong neck of the Vishanyan, even as she is laid back comfortably on Agatha's soft stomach fur. The rest can't come soon enough. We all want to hold the baby. The incredibly amused Javra notes as she sits on a nearby table to watch. Heh. Maternal instinct is a powerful drug, Agatha says as she feels the tiny movements, both inside her and against her. The happy little hormones firing through her system and bringing a level of satisfaction that getting new paint patterns for her armor fails to reach. So, Velocity asks, what are you feeling now? Your body has shifted, your axiom. If you didn't have the same voice, I wouldn't know it was you, Agatha asks, and Velocity lets out a humming sound. She's fully visible now, more comfortable when she can be seen and able to easily shift into and out of the visible spectrum. The door unexpectedly opens and Captain Rangi pauses as he looks into the room that's not only empty of people, but of furnishings. Then they all fade back in as if someone had pulled back a green screen blanket. Sorry, my guard was down, so I was startled. Velocity apologizes. Quite all right. I'm here to speak to you about the fact that a great deal of the crew is eager to see you and Miracle. But there have been human hybrid and human children on all sorts of previous stops. There are some even on Zalwar. Now. Yes, but there's a sense of community here. You are, despite being an odd part of our ship, still part of the ship, and as you have had a child, well, everyone wants to celebrate and see. So I'm here to talk to you about how many crew you're going to allow in, even if the number is ultimately 0. I do not know what the number will be. I understand, Captain Rangi states as he realizes that Miracle is watching, and he crouches down and gives the little girl a wave without entering the room. It's already crowded in there already. Are you upset that I refused the citizenship offering? Not at all. I got most of what I wanted just by offering things. Everything I didn't get was mostly just personal amusement. I've set a precedent, and while it's not very solid, it was going to be on very shaky ground at best, Captain Rangi assures her. You've calmed down a great deal with regards to us and our presence, Giria says. She's wrapped around the outside of the room with her body leaning against the wall next to the door. Of course I have. Time has passed. We've acclimatized. We came out looking for treachery and found sincerity. It's hard to keep your attitude up then. Not to mention, a lot of the men are relaxing now that the end our mission is in sight. Mostly. There's still Centris, returning to and then the long journey through cruel space. Centris is going to be a mess in half. On a normal day, there's enough conspiracy that a spy trying to work there is undergoing a trial of blades every moment of the day. I beg your pardon, Captain Rangi asks. What? How have I confused you? Trial of blades. Pardon, Nagasha term. Trial by fire, perhaps? It means to undergo a great test of one's ability, where failure is not only a very real possibility, but will have an enormous amount of consequences. So it's as rumor says, we only stayed for a moment, not even a full day. And in a controlled area, Harold says as he returns. Keep talking. I've got this place bugged to hell and back. I was listening. He slips past Captain Rangi and partially through the wall with phasing to return with a series of snacks and a tiny device. Is that? Velocity asks as she holds her hand out and Harold hands it to her. She looks down at the device in the palm of her hand and smiles. What is that? Gary asks. Tracker and beacon. This device is given to caretakers. It painlessly and harmlessly implants a temporary tracking device in newly formed and now newly born Vishanyan. Our stealth abilities start activating within the first month of life, and keeping track of many little, eager, and energetic children is a difficult task for anyone, let alone those who can turn invisible as well. So this cuts out the silliness. It will guide us infallibly towards her without compromising her stealth otherwise, and without causing her the slightest discomfort. Natural growth of the body will harmlessly push it out when she reaches 5 years of age and she can be talked into wearing a different tracking device, just in case she needs to hide. Does anything happen to the device after it's... Captain Rangi begins to ask, and Velocity produces an amulet. She puts a little fold in its chain and wears it on her head to sparkle ever so above and between her eyes. I see. A little token of maturity. Technically, it's part of the formal uniform, but there's talk of changing it. No one's even considering not having the trackers. We're too good at slipping away without stealth effects helping us. With it? Nearly impossible to stop, Velocity says fondly before removing her tracker and tucking it away. The larger part is the childhood tracker. Once you're trusted to pick out your name, you're trusted to go without a tracker. So it's deactivated and made into a symbol of your maturity. She smiles gently as she considers the situation and nods. Hand her here, please. This is a very simple procedure. Oh, it's already needed. Can she crawl? Garaya asks as she shifts ever so slightly. The entire room seems to move with her as her tail churns around a little. Not for a time, but possible Vish, possible makers, possible foes. As much as it would be over a mountain of their dead and my own dead body, there's a risk of kidnapping, and we'll need to find her good and easy if that happens. This will do so, Velocity explains as Javra gently picks up Miracle with her wings in a soft, rounded configuration to hand her up to Velocity. There is a slight rumbling sound from Uma in her war form, as she's clearly already missing playing with Miracle. I thought that the Takra war form was for battle only? Captain Rangi asks. Side effect. Something about her being pregnant with my kids in particular is giving her far more control over her war form than normal. Even if that wasn't the case, Takra can still recognize loved ones and friends in war form. It's just that there's some tragedy when some people assume that a Takra likes them far more than they actually do when they approach them in war form. I see. Well, in that case, I'm going to stay on this side of the serpent's coils and avoid that kind of disaster. That's just the thing, sir. She's far more aware. She's in control. Our child within her, they're helping her focus, Harold says. Regardless, I will keep a respectful difference, or at least respect this boundary, Captain Rangi states, and I'll advise the others to do so. Thank you, Velocity states. Incidentally, Harold, I will be needing to speak to you about arrangements for the RAM and the RAD. I've already begun speaking to Admiral Cistern, but you are a person who provides all forms of answer to issues. And this one isn't an issue. You either take it with you as an example of technology, or you bring in temporary staff to crew them as they separate from the inevitable. With enough resources, they can quickly put together a framework between them and an engine to move around at will. Put a protective detail around it, and you can effectively have a new Dauntless-class ship produced in short order. That was something being discussed. We have options. But the creation of the RAM and the RAD were emergency measures. Same with the Hive ships. We will not be able to properly run or power these vessels in cruel space, and frankly, it would be an enormous waste to simply drag them with us. We will only be able to break them down into raw resources according to our currently known technology. Not to mention your orders that only very specific things can be brought back, Harold states. That as well. If the RAM and RAD do not function in cruel space, then we cannot bring them back. If they do work, then we can most definitely not bring them back, Captain Rangi states. As it is, outside of controlled samples and data, what we'll bring back is ourselves and possibly a volunteer alien to speak to humanity. I know, and the implications and weight in the word volunteer are immense, Harold states. I know. The moment I learned that the aliens are in fact real, I concluded that such a thing would not be happening. Not unless the alien in question is nearly indestructible, but the numbers of aliens like that are very, very limited. Religiously so. Religiously being literal in this case, Harold says before pausing and considering. I am learning to fear that look. If I could talk to a primal and get them to potentially volunteer to visit Earth, would you take them? What? Primals are much, much more potent than other aliens. They do not even notice null in most situations. It's a triviality to them, Harold wonders. And who are you planning on asking? Grandmother, maybe? Are you sure? Giria asks, and Harold's eyebrows go up. Actually, my first thoughts were Basilash or Rikaksa. Basilash is no-nonsense, would straighten everything out and leave. Rikaksa would likely do much the same, but leave all sorts of little presents as she does so. Presents? She's liable to leave with a mountain of wealth and illegal technical ownership of all fresh water or something. She's a woman who can get everything she wants legally, but finds it more amusing and worthwhile to do things illegally. She's officially the primal of freedom and cunning, but she's unofficially the primal of criminals. Does she not call Centris her home? She does, which explains a great deal, doesn't it? Harold asks. Did she corrupt Centris, or did it corrupt her? No, I think it's more that Centris's inherent corruption drew her in. She likely made it a better place to be, in all honesty. All primals are incredibly forward-thinking and downright prophetic for what they think is good for an area. I suppose the upside to having outright immortals around is that they want a functioning society and see putting things to right the same way a man sees sweeping his floor. Still, I don't think people who could be best described as crime or law-embodied would the best choice for first alien on Earth. Your options are a little thin, but I'll start talking to grandmother and my grandmother, see if anyone's interested. The timing just isn't the best, Giria adds. What do you mean? There is one that would like to do something about such things. Xaltraki the Redemption. But he's already engaging in the uplift of a species. and I doubt Lady Basalash will leave her post. Even if she finishes with the trials she is presiding over at the moment, she has taken in a new ward, and she is dedicated to the raising of her wards. She has had no children, and those she takes in are treated as both child and personal project until they are fully realized, and she is thorough, as in, guide you longer than a mortal lifetime thorough, Giri explains. Not that there isn't clear benefits to her methods. To be her ward is to be raised up into a mover and shaker of the galaxy. She instills the kind of dedication and will that shatters what people thought were once possible, and she's currently rearing a would-be explorer. Haliza, Harold supplies, and Giria nods. And there we go. She didn't even notice, Velocity says as a happy miracle wriggles in her mother's lap. Thank you, distracting her with the conversation. Happy to help, Captain Rangi says with a grin as the Tyne babe is being shown the tracking device and is staring in wonder as it keeps pointing directly to her. Is there any risk of her making the beacon vanish? The beacons have special little axiom effects that stops the stealth from working. In fact, they work backwards. Trying to cloak a beacon makes it stand out in the axiom so brightly that you can't not find it, Velocity explains. Sounds like a security issue, Jabber says. Well, if you're keeping track of your own people and your greatest strength is stealth, there has to be a weakness somewhere. It's actually part of our education, leaning to balance practicality and caution. Not everyone gets it. And you're not allowed field command until you do. A lesson that didn't totally stick for some, Harold says. No, it didn't, Velocity admits. But we'll be trying harder for the next generation. Won't we, little lady? Miracle does not understand what she's being told, but she's happy to be spoken to. Into A Wider Galaxy, Part 498, HFY, Herbert's 100 Harem. We have come to agreements. The undaunted understand and are of worthy strength. This has been proven in decorum and duel. Now, the question is, what shall be what? Understand that with this portion of our gathering, that all the eyes in this hall are watching and all ears are hearing. Lady Val says as she reaches to where the crescent symbol of the moon goddess hangs overhead, and they are in view of the many prosthetic dolls that are all sitting in a series of shelves looking down in the chamber. Very well then, you have informed me that you are being attacked by Vish, who are still under the thumb of an unknown party, that these Vish are using venom-imbued implants and brutal tactics up to and including potential cannibalism of civilians in 3 separate systems. One a periphery system, another manufacturer base system, and the final system being a core system. Whatever manner in which the war is actually progressing, assistance would be appreciated, Herbert says, and there is no counter-argument. He waits for her to respond before speaking again. So, if I may be so bold, what form of assistance do you most desire? Ships in system? Infiltrators hunting foes? Hands holding weapons? I doubt advisors or commanders would be overly appreciated. On the contrary, if you are to have the honor of aiding us in ours, then we shall need your advisors to speak to us, and no doubt your commanders are better at leading your own troops. No, where difficulties may lie might be in the standards of your people. By which you mean? She answers him by gesturing towards Ratras, and Herbert tilts his head to the side. Are you implying that strengthening the sons of La'Aberon is undesirable? Herbert asks. No, strengthening is not the issue. The change of loyalty is. Lady Val, the undaunted oath is a 5-year commitment. You have lost track of longer stretches of time. You have dabbled in hobbies for longer periods of time before determining they were not right for you. 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 is nothing to a child of La'Aberon. Meanwhile, the sons of La'Aberon will be blooded, strengthened, given pride and skill and grace to match the formidable natural strength they already possess, Herbert states. And what guarantee do we have that they will not simply stay away? The same one that ensures they do not run away now, Herbert says, and she considers. Speak on his level. He is trying but clearly does not understand. One of the prosthetics suddenly states before settling back down. The problem with the damn things that even in standby mode they have enough energy running through them that they're indistinguishable from being fully controlled. And it's trivial to have a perfect poker face when using a prosthesis. Herbert would know. He's done it a lot. And it's a habit that's spread to most of the streams. The synth undaunted are complaining that they're ruining the good thing they've got going. You are yes a face culture. Admitting that you need aid is one of the greatest unspoken crimes you can possibly commit, which makes communication with peoples who do not follow the same form of morality a great issue. Like all forms of culture, it has its strengths and weaknesses. Shame cultures will let a person do whatever they want until they go too far, and then the accusations never wear off. It also leaves to judgment. Face cultures deal with all the nonsense by front-loading things and getting all the social issues dealt with. In theory. In truth, no culture or method is perfect. And that's fine. However, there is the issue in where it forces communications that even with shared language, the cultural differences leave us with immense translation issues. Much like this wonderful prosthetic I have been given, it requires an adapter to be used. So let us not discuss what we know we want and need from each other. We're both intelligent enough to have surmised it. We shall instead discuss the methodology to translate and adapt to each other for these events. Herbert offers and Lady Val smiles. Very well then. Let us indeed discuss things. Let us discuss accidents, how things can be received by more than the officially intended individual, and how a provisional ally giving out battle details would encourage nearby ships and crews to assist, and how the smart thing to do at that point is to simply begin communicating in earnest with allies to prevent friendly fire and other such misunderstandings. Herbert says, and he catches movement out of the corner of his eye. Several of the inactive prosthetics are smiling, grinning and/or smiling. Then some of them notice his noticing and their faces go blank, which confirms his suspicion that the prosthetic is somehow bugged. Yep. The rarely used technology style meant that it was easier to slip such things into the systems without him noticing, which means he has more to learn. But later, the bugged prosthesis still has use as the official method of communication with L'Abran. Besides, he can't wait to figure out how to make a new and novel kind of wiretap. Sir Philip really got him good, didn't he? You look distracted. Just in awe at how much my teacher has outright altered my thought processes and likes. Sometimes I struggle to recognize who I am now or who I used to be before all my training. My younger self and I are nearly complete strangers. But enough of me, let us speak of you and glorious L'Abran. Yes, but I request that you no longer refer to your younger self. Healing comas or not, I felt myself begin to wrinkle and prune at the mere idea. Oh, don't you worry. Were I not a very well-kept man with a great many beautiful children, I'd have been staring at times, Herbert says, and she gives him a look. Yes, compliments such as that were indeed acceptable, but daring, very daring. Looking to start a scandal, daring. I see your mentor is with us. In spirit, if not in body. You suspect he could be here? I generally assume he is everywhere and nowhere, especially if I have confirmation of his location. There's no better way to sneak up on someone than have them be absolutely sure they know where you are. He certainly left an impression on you. Oh yes, no doubt, Herbert confirms. Now, back to L'Abran and their communication frequencies. And what were you thinking? I'm thinking that since we have such incompatible technologies, we really should be more open to one another. A few techniques to translate and better understand our new friends would be just the sort of thing. Of course, such generosity would not be overlooked, and a few friendly war games would be easy enough to organize at that point. And should some mutual enemies show themselves at that time, well, they're already there. In theory, Lady Val says. In theory, of course. Herbert amends. He then gives a meaningful look to the prosthetics and nods before gesturing for Lady Val to lean downwards to speak with him. All right, now that you're on my level physically and metaphorically, how bad is it really? Do you need reinforcements now or what? Furthermore, direct information on the general behavior and attitudes of the Vish are required. Since they cannot be seen, they must be predicted. And if we don't have information about them, then we cannot predict them. I understand. Believe me, I do, Lady Val says. There is the very slight sound of a clattering as something falls to the ground under her robes as she stands back up fully. Still, we have come to the best conclusions we can so far. As she begins to guide him out, there is a slight skittering as the object she just dropped is moved into position as they leave. A bare flicker of axiom, and with Lady Val as a visual block from the rest, Herbert has the data chit smack into the palm of his hand and holds his hands behind his back to cover things up. They engage in pleasant and unassuming small talk as he is escorted off the embassy grounds. The moment they're out of sight of the cameras and back into undaunted, controlled areas, both Herbert and Rattrass relax. Oh man, I forgot how tense that made me. Really, it's only been a couple months. Like you, I can barely recognize myself after the training, Rattrass says with a smirk as he tosses his Orojo club into the air to spin it so hard it blurs into a circle before he catches it and winces slightly as he grabs it the wrong way and has a spike trying in vain to pierce his palm. That whole show I gave. No way in hell would I ever do that. Maybe dream about it when I wanted to lash out, but actually do it? No. He flips the club so that he holds it by the handle and snorts in amusement. My mother would be so scandalized. My sister screeching and my father struggling to not laugh. At least you'd have someone in your corner. Of course. I needed more than that, though. It was his idea, you know. My father bought me time and distracted my mother and sister so I could sneak out and get signed up. How'd he do that? Called some friends, bought some favors, and used them for a lot of booze. Let me guess, by the time the hangover cleared, he had a temporary house servant, Horshka, pretending to me by binding her breasts and making sure she was bright green in coloration. Apparently she was being paid well and had a recall beacon on her for when my mother lost her temper. And your father laughed for hours straight, Herbert says, and Rattrass blinks. Do you just have insane amounts of information on everything? I'm not interrogating you. We're engaging in small talk. I've spoken to your father. He's agreed to be a data analyst. He's being watched too closely to leave his home, but he's going to be crunching information and helping soldiers in the field. He's also thinking about training to be a dispatch officer. Goddess be damned, I need to catch up. Oh, don't worry. You've been busy with training and have only been out and about for a week. This is the biggest thing you've been up to since you dropped a dead drop-off. I didn't expect to go around whacking with an Orojo for my first combat deployment. Life's funny that way, Rattrass says before sniggering and then snorting as it comes out. Did you see the look on that blueberry's face? I was at the wrong angle, but I can imagine. Herbert says, No, you can't. There are all sorts of little subtleties. You can see the strain in different ways. Little twitches in the eyes and, oh, so satisfying. If she had a proper green face, thinking of your family, thinking of everything. Rattrass says, I mean, I was named after a popular brand of alcohol. My mother insists it was over the war hero with the female version of the name, and Rattrass is the brand of alcohol she made as intoxicating as a man's first time. Yeah, Herbert says. I'm aware. And you use my name like it was nothing? She has to assume I was ignorant, Herbert says. You're a shit. Yes, now, do you want to see what was on this chip with me? You'll need to do some paperwork to get the full approval, but nope, no. You said the P word. I'm out, Rattrass says. How did you get through registration with that aversion to paperwork? And where did it come from? Your dad is fine with it. My dad is totally numb to the pain. I am unmarred and virginal and... Are you sure you want to imply those things? There is a non-zero chance that other Ibu are in hearing range. Fuck 'em. I'm rolling in undaunted colors now so I can act like you guys do, so meh. Rattrass says, sticking out his tongue, and revealing the fact that Ibu keep a long, tongue-pointed tongue, generally hidden behind their teeth. He pulls it back in as Herbert lazily hops up to grab at it and, of course, misses. They walk his prosthetic back into its cradle, and Herbert gets off the now properly and fully isolated command couch that will exclusively hook up to this prosthetic in question. You sure you don't want to go through the paperwork to see what's on this? We have it down to a foot in height in physical paper. He chimes out in an innocent tone and with an angelic smile. I think I'll step up getting an Axiom brand. Sounds like it's less painful. Rattrass's tone is drier than dust. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 499, Herald of Red Blades. Something feels, I don't know, incomplete, Velocity offers. Can you narrow down why? Harold asks her, and she shakes her head. No, I can't, which has me somewhat nervous, and Velocity cuts herself off as the door to the cabin lights up with a request to enter. Come in. The door opens and one of the inevitable scientists is standing there. Really? You nerds didn't get enough pictures already? Never enough. It's both data and something we can brag over later. Besides, it's a bit of an unspoken truth. A lot of people are using visiting or bringing gifts as an excuse for a few last-second souvenir or grocery runs. I know, Harold says, and there's a chuckle. Well, if you don't mind, considering that little miracle is getting tribute to be used as an excuse to enable you, I think she's off to a good start. She's already being paid well just for showing up. Imagine how much richer her life will be when she starts working for it, Velocity asks. That's the spirit. And speaking of tribute, you've probably got enough of these to pad your crib, no problem. But a little more fluff and softness never goes awry when it comes to a baby, he says as he pulls out a small bag he holds out, and Velocity holds out her hand. A whisper of axiom, and it floats into her hand, all nice and gentle, and she removes a plush serpent. She then checks it for anything that might be hard. It comes up as all soft, and she tucks it in beside where Miracle is napping. There are so many plush snakes and a few other assorted animals that Miracle is using them as a mattress, pillow, and blanket. And they're almost all in some shade of pink and white, giving it an almost camouflage pattern as she naps softly. I'm going to get copies of those pictures and see if I can't make a slideshow to demonstrate how quickly she's gotten buried in the fluff, Harold notes fondly. No problem with that, sir, the scientist notes. So what did you grab? Oh, just some things. From Scrap Trap. The things they have as refurbished goods there are fascinating. Most of it you can get at any second-hand store. Maybe, but so much of it. And in properly labeled bins. I want to see if I can slap a few things together before we re-enter cruel space. Need help? Oh no. Personal challenge with plenty of note-taking. Having you look up instructions and do it in a few minutes gets in the way. Strange experiment. Experiments revolving around instinct and intuition can be. I'm seeing just how easy the tech is to slap together without a guide, blueprint, or experience. As such, getting any help, or even more than a general idea of what I want to do and what I think I need ahead of time, would be spoiling the experiment. If you don't mind, what is the experiment exactly? What are you putting together? Plasma sword. A few other guys are doing similar things, and we have a group of 10 seeing if they can slap together a space-worthy engine out of spare parts. None of us expect to actually succeed, but it'll be something that will eat up a lot of time productively, especially seeing if we can't hook up alternate power sources and components in cruel space to get them to work on Earth. I'm not sure Earth is ready for plasma blades, Harold notes. You afraid the sci-fi fans will kill people? Themselves and others, Harold says. That is a fair concern. Well, it's not likely to succeed either way, and if it does, we'll classify it and pass the blame to whoever's dumb enough to dig up that landmine. Soul of responsibility and integrity you are. Well, you took all the crazy, so all that's left for the likes of us is reliability and such. The scientist dismisses. Besides, it's not like we haven't already been working on them on Earth. Really, how do those ones work? It's like a really long blowtorch with a flame contained by a sort extending ceramic series of tubes. Honestly, I always thought we'd get the system shock style of laser weaponry first. And what type is that? High-intensity laser contained in a refractive mesh. Whenever you hit something with the mesh, it unleashes some of the laser to burn before straightening out after no longer being in contact, the scientist notes. That would have to be some incredible mesh to retain all those properties at once, to say nothing of the difficulty of getting a powerful enough laser to fit in the hand and give out enough consistent energy. The focusing array, the battery, to say nothing of what kind of reinforce the grip, would have to be to withstand those forces and not burn the hand that holds it. There is a pause as Miracle shifts and the scientist gives a rueful grin before leaning back out of the doorway and looking down. He then raises a finger to his lips to encourage who's coming next to do so quietly. Another pink plush snake is how the next guest introduces himself. More tribute, Velocity notes in amusement. Scene change. Main bridge, the inevitable, Zal War. Scans are coming up clean, sir. Beyond the literal tons of devices that heralds put all over the place, we've got nothing unexpected. Good. Observer Wu, are there any last-minute surprises? Bits of information required or the like? No. The last touches of information I need are being correlated at Centris, rather than here on Zawar. How did all that go, by the way? Crosswind is the highest-ranking alien with human-built power over humans. The interview? It went well. She has had a fair amount to explain to me. This is a training ground and a dispatch point. Entire cultures, new worlds and histories coming here and mixing. Observer Wu explains. She is juggling the training needs of raw recruits, specialists, officers, those looking into higher training, and the logistics of sending out and dispatching undaunted soldiers and crew to differing worlds and places of import. To say nothing of the embassy that's being built, Captain Rangi says, we have purged our little embassy on this ship. The sentient forest matter is relocated to a dedicated chamber in the undaunted arcology, and we have that airlock back. Good. If we can convince Harold to clean up the mess he's made of the ship, we'll almost have something resembling operational security again. Won't that be nice? Observer Wu asks, and there's an amused huff from the captain. Is this the point where I join the conversation, or should I just... Harold's voice echoes, not from the speakers, but from the bridge in general. Stay out of it, please, Observer Wu states. Sorry, Harold says, and everyone pauses to see if he has more to say. This leads to about a minute of awkward silence. Right so. Engines and systems, Captain Rangi asks. Scene change. Northern edge of crater, Starheart Crater, Zalwar. The party had resumed after the initial explosions of drones, and while awkward at first, it had kicked off again in full, and then continued into a multi-day festival. It was starting to die down, but it was still a big thing happening with lots of Floric and empty hand masters, and Undaunted having a good time. Leaving already? Kudzu asks as he calls Harold in answer to the text. Afraid so. I'm security on this ship, and we need to go when the captain says we go. And the captain says we go. Pity still. You've kicked off something here, and I'm not entirely sure how to take good advantage of it. Just try. You'd be surprised how many great things can happen if you just give things a shot, Harold replies. I know that. Half my life is just daring to live through things or try things I shouldn't have, Kudzu says. Still, things are going. The official girls are arriving and already sending their screaming rage at me in mind. Not that I've ever been on their good side. Are you going to be okay? Need some advice? Oh no, I've been screamed at them so many times I'm barely a grass breath from developing an adaptation to it, Kudzu assures him. All right, if you're sure. I am. Enjoy yourself with your family. The first few years are some of the most precious. Even with the Aegon techniques, you never get them back. Do they even work on the Floric? Yes, but not in the way you expect. That has done nothing to sate my curiosity. I know. It's the perfect response. It's the perfect something, Harold remarks and Kudzu snickers. Look, before we lose contact, we're not going to lose contact. Remember? Protean? This call will be live even if I'm suddenly on the outer edge of the galaxy. Quit blowing my drama here, Kudzu states before coughing into a fist. Anyways, before we lose contact, I wanted to thank you for the monumental... A Floric child with a face mask bolted around his head to prevent him from biting people grabs at his arm and roars. Kudzu is unmoved, but the sound still transfers. Who's that? Sister niece. My sister's body has grown a fresh head, but the little terror doesn't know decorum yet. She's barely at the stop biting people stage and not fully trusted with it. Oh, damn. Is she on a leash? Head cage. Its locking mechanism is tied to a game that she has to beat to escape it. A game. Edutainment, all about why eating people is a bad idea and the many different ways it's a bad idea. Top seller in Floric systems. It sucks, the immature Floric declares. Let me see. Who are you talking to? A friend. Kudzu states. You don't have friends. I think she needs more than the cage. That girl is vicious, Harold says in amusement. Family trait. We help each other develop emotional adaptations, Kudzu says, and Harold chuckles. Anyways, thank you. I'll find some way to pay you back and knock it off, Pollen, or I'm going to send your gourd rolling. You don't have the guts, Pollen declares, and Kudzu's response sounds like a gong being rung. Scene change. Undaunted arcology, upper-level balcony, Zal War. The enormous ship, technically below but still large enough to be almost above them, starts rising up. Bjorn grins at the sight of it. The enormous thing is big enough to count as a land formation, and while not large enough to be seen on the ground from orbit, it's still really, really big. Despite his exposure to the wider galaxy, seeing something that big move without blasting him back, groaning, or seeming to struggle in the slightest makes him watch in awe as the inevitable lifts off its landing pad, points itself upwards and rises into the sky. Yes, the engine is running, audibly running, but it still seems more like the hand of God has come down and simply picked it up and into the heavens. It's out of sight in moments. There are smaller towns, millions of tons of metal, thousands of men, enough munitions to reduce multiple arcologies to piles of rubble, and it's gone in moments. So what were you hoping to see with that? Holly asks. It just, those big chunky things are important. I get that it's just a massive blocky ship to you, but to me it's more than that. I helped make the first, I crewed it, it brought me here. Dauntless class ships are important. It was interesting, all the backups involved and such, but it didn't seem all that special as ships go, Salas says, and Bjorn shrugs. Well, regardless, I think we can all agree it's an important ship and type of ship. I don't know. Ships are just ships, not really my thing, Lil says, and Bjorn just shrugs again. That's fair. What are you thinking about? Irma asks him. Well, I don't want it to sound like I'm forcing anything or rushing, but he's a father, a new father, to a beautiful baby girl, Bjorn notes. Oh, big guy. Is your clock ticking? Vera asks in a teasing tone. What? Nothing to be ashamed of, after all. You're the kind of man that would want to be a father, Lil says as she leans up against him. What were you thinking first? You've got nothing but herbivores for daughters. So unless you think you'll get lucky or have some of that special cream ready, then you're not going to end up with someone you can share your food with that much. Hey, I make a point of my food being edible for you girls. Doesn't stop it from tasting like it should be toxic. And this is why I, as keeping it to myself. You girls all have your careers to think about, and it wouldn't be fair to ask you to just, oh, no. Remember, this isn't cruel space. We don't just get a couple decades to squeeze kids and a career into. We have a lot more time. You want to front-load the babies? Vera asks. Is this front-loading? By some standards, we've already waited a very long time, and they'd be wondering if we're even serious about this. Well, I am. I just worry. Bad dreams on what might happen if I wake up as her and not me. What would I do to you if that happens? What would I do to someone even more delicate? What if? Holly asks as she speaks up at last since the teasing began. Bjorn's massive arm wraps around her shoulder and he pulls her close. You're fine, Holly. Knife Top is gone. She's never coming back, and the only things left of her are bad memories and the fact that if she showed up again, you'd punch her face in, he says, and she huffs a bit before sighing. Knife Top? An unfamiliar voice asks, and everyone turns to see nothing. Who's Knife Top? Who's there? Oh, sorry, the voice says, and a pastel green woman with a long neck and serpent's head fades in. Wisely reasoned plans at your service. A pleasure. So, who's Knife Top? You need to sign some NDAs for that to be answered. Oh. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 500. It's inevitable. Well, we're away, and at most 2 days out from Centrus. Observer Wu notes as he goes over a basic readout of the ship's sensor readings. All sorts of little toys in his office that let him know how everything was going so he could report it back. And so much of it automated that he felt that he was more in this to just be a trusted nod or shake of the head at the end of the road. From what the sensors are saying, the laneway is packed. The closest equivalent is a highway at rush hour, but everything is inexplicably still moving at a proper pace. It would only take one person making a mistake to kill countless others. Even with them being packed in like this, they're dozens of kilometers away from each other, hundreds in some cases. Granted, for a starship, that's basically the range where children start making faces at each other, or in a fight that's less knife fighting range and more outright wrestling. The few extreme, close-range fights that the Inevitable had been in were downright absurd based on galactic ranges. In fact, by his own studies of galactic ship combat, that whole mess at the edge of the Vinok Nebula had been sheer madness from start to finish. The kind of affair that only the most sensationalist programs dedicated to spectacle rather than accuracy would go through. Especially the FTL Jolton system. Every time he looked up that he was inundated with essays on how horrible an idea it was and how many ways it could destroy a ship. Looking into the media of the galaxy had taught him a lot. It taught him what they considered sensationalist and interesting, and it was little wonder the Undaunted and their associates were getting the attention they were. But how to properly phrase the message that the men from the Dauntless had gone out to be action heroes, and in some regards, even superheroes? The scanner readings are all coming up positive and show that there is nothing unusual about their trip to Centris. So he has some time to get a bit of busy work done. Thankfully, some parts are quite easy, and performing the job is more akin to rest. So he brings up a file on one of his more recent interviews and begins lightly reading over some things on another screen. Now then, Admiral Crosswind, it's good that we've finally begun our interview. For the sake of the interview, can you confirm that you are Miak, one of several species evolved from serpents? Observer Wu had said a few days ago. I can indeed. And to head off the most likely question, no, I am not. Nor were my ancestors poisonous in any way, or venomous, I believe the proper term was. Poison use is a very rare trait outside of cruel space. In fact, I believe the sheer number of toxin-using creatures as either deterrent or weapon has effectively tripled since we've begun researching into cruel space. And that's across a single planet. Admiral Crosswind had answered him. She had been one of the better, clearer interviews on Zalwar. Most fascinating. Yes, it's quite the thing to learn that the main trait of evolving without axiom might be poison. Lord knows some girls want to classify human pheromones as one, to say nothing of cuisine. Very good. Now to the meat of what I'm hoping to learn about during this interview. We can skim by the questions on your opinions of humanity and the Undaunted, as you clearly have at least a positive opinion on both, to join the human-led organization of the Undaunted. Yes and yes. I have been in private military for most of my life, a bit of a family tradition. Then my company was treated, well, to keep things polite and understandable. Let's say we were not treated well. The Undaunted offered us a good deal, which included helping with the missing pay of the last deal we were in. So far, they've been completely on the up and up, and I have signed up in full. Most of my girls are now training officers, and the few that aren't are in my direct command. It's solid, cushy work, and with how energetic all these men get, it rarely grows boring, and even more rarely stays boring. I see. To say nothing of the benefit of having all the men around, it had been a minor mystery as to how to get men to join an organization en masse. I say minor because the answer was already known but was impractical to get off the ground. So when the Undaunted show up and say they want to recruit a bunch of men, and already are a collection of men, they had an easy time finding them. No doubt. So speaking of the training that your girls are helping with, what can you tell me about that? Well, our training programs use a memory download coupled with practice to get the lessons to stick. How familiar are you with healing comas? Somewhat, but for the sake of this interview, I will state out loud that a healing coma is a powerful axiom-based restoration technique. It has many names, with healing coma and regeneration coma being two of the most common. The process was created by the Nagasha after studying and with the aid of their living gods, the primal Nagasha. This technique essentially reverses the age of the subject while also healing them to enormous degrees. It is limited by only three factors. It does not work on the dead. It can age someone into infancy or past it to a fetal state, which can be extremely dangerous. And finally, it effectively resets the mind of the individual in question, healing away memories. This last point is countered by a piece of technology known as a retention band, memory band, and several other names that copies the mind of the person undergoing a healing coma and then re-downloading it into the restored individual when the process is finished. The process is described as life flashing before your eyes in Ultra HD by some. Correct. Now, standard procedure after a healing coma is to a quick null wash of the bands to erase everything and copy the restoration protocols back into the band. A simple procedure. Takes 10 minutes to do an entire hospital's worth of retention bands. She begins and the real-life observer Wu huffs softly in amusement at her upcoming dramatic pause. However, it was proven rather quickly to the undaunted that these bands were valuable and could be used with ill intent, which is when they started brainstorming and coming up with a method to use them for more positive outcomes. Surely they weren't the first. No, of course not. But there's enough of a taboo around downloading the mind of a person into another body to not make it common. But training downloads, which cause the recruit to effectively relive the memories of undaunted basic training, is what they gained out of this. They've updated and modified it many times, but they now have it down to a system where much of the initial technical learning is done in the first 2 weeks, coupled with hard exercise and lots of food and team building to help condition the recruits as they learn. Then the real training starts after that. Vehicle and weapon use, numerous non-lethal training exercises, and testing to see if anything from the memory downloads hasn't properly or fully stuck. In general, we have it up to a 70% retention, but we have tweaked it and might have an improvement to 73% overall retention of the memory downloads, which is exceptional. Our training accounts for 50% and up. I see. What would happen if it reached 100%? Then training time would be reduced significantly. You need to understand something, Observer Wu. And that would be. There's a great deal of biological shortcuts that Axiom allows us. One of the foremost among them is empowerment of the body. Most just do a temporary boost of strength, as consistent self-modification takes up a great deal of energy and needs maintenance. But once we give them the habits of maintaining their new forms, they keep it up constantly. And what is this habit? Exercise. It's also part of the process to develop the bodies in question. Using Axiom to make you more physically adept rather than temporarily stronger is the initial technique, and it just builds from there. So how quickly do you move soldiers out? Basic troopers are finished in a single month of training. Specialists take 2. Officer training is 2 weeks. After that, the big question is experience, experience, and experience. My drill instructors work hard to get them as close to actual combat training as possible, but it's not fully possible without active and truly hostile foes. Why is that? Because of something that you humans struggle with, Admiral Crosswind explains. To summarize things, we all can sense Axiom. We all influence the Axiom around us. This is done even subconsciously, by emotion primarily. Yes, the Axiom aura. The influence of an individual's emotion on the nearby Axiom. Correct. We all pick up on it. And it's nearly impossible to mimic it with a mere machine. The sensation hostile, that actively hates you and wants to do you harm, that can cause a lot of people to freeze up at the wrong time. It also plays into human strengths in combat. By not having an Axiom signature, your species is effectively bluffing every minute of the day. Very interesting. But what of those of us who do have Axiom signatures? Powerful adepts, the modified, or perhaps even the truly changed like Mr. Jameson? I've only been around him in passing, and he is different. You see, when a person processes the Axiom around them, they change it to be attuned to them. And this is separate from them changing it with emotion. He is technically bleeding his emotions into his aura, but his aura is, for lack of a better term, growing too quickly. How do I explain this? Imagine a fountain, okay? This fountain is many tiers tall and sprays upwards powerfully, but is designed well so it all lands in the pool around it. This helps clean the water and looks beautiful. Makes sense so far? Yes, it's an easily understandable metaphor so far. Emotions in one's axiom presence is like color and pattern in this fountain. And while a normal person has enough water to make interesting designs, Mr. Jameson is spraying out so much in the way of this fluid that it's like comparing a garden hose to a fire hose. Even if there are dyes in the water, the natural speed of the water is so quick that you can't catch it. Or even better for a comparison, most people are rivers and streams of water. Mr. Jameson is a waterfall. He has all the same emotions, and they very well be in the axiom. But it's moving too fast to be seen, and before it can settle, it's already being influenced by the other axiom and effectively erasing what he feels from it. But how is the training going? Why use such a well-traveled world as the main training ground? The makeup of the world itself. For all that Zalwar is heavily populated and indeed even qualifies as a type of ecumenopolis, there is a great deal of empty ground and free terrain to use. Outside the arcologies themselves, no one wants to build anything. And the arcologies are so huge that even the blind, deaf, and dumb can find them. Meaning that if you avoid the arcologies, you avoid all civilians, allowing you all the room you need to train? That's right, which makes this a perfect dispatch point as well. And if the tundra worms want to provide enough of a constant threat to sharpen our students, then far be it from me to deny them their obvious purpose. And you use them for target practice? And to encourage awareness, rapid pace marches around the arcology and off the protective foundation means that a lot of recruits learn hard and fast to never lag behind or stop when in hostile terrain. How dangerous are these creatures? When in the training armor, they're not, but they are disgusting, uncomfortable, unpleasant, and many other descriptors that I would reprimand a woman under my command for using in an official report. Needless to say, avoiding them is motivation aplenty for even our laziest recruits. And about your recruits, does the wide variety of differing body shapes, biologies, and unusual abilities get in the way? This is a long-solved galactic problem. All body types have a few considerations, yes, but the answer is so standardized it's part of even the most ill-maintained and poorly thought-out business strategies. To say nothing of the fact that most individuals have gone out of their way to solve the issue in their own right. But if you want a direct explanation, well, it would be exceedingly tedious. So I'm going to be having a physical copy printed out for you to read at your leisure. But I must warn you, it's very dry, redundant, and the sort of thing that many people would hide a key or the like inside a printed book of it, and rest assured that no one would find it, because no one in their right mind would read it. Oh, I'm sure a biologist might find it interesting. Care to put money on it, Observer Wu? Sadly, I do not think it would be wise or legal for me to gamble on, or with official documents. Pity.